Hello there, my name is Pankaj. You are watching The Trump Card. Now, Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin's friendship isn't just a political oddity, it's a strategic asset. From their will they, won't they moments in Helsinki to Trump's repeated praise of Putin's strong leadership, their relationship has been years in the making. Now, with Ukraine war dragging on, their bonhomie shaping global politics like how? While French President Emmanuel Macron made rounds in Washington hailing Ukraine's sacrifice for Europe's collective security, Trump was busy doing what he does the best cutting a deal. He proudly declared that Putin had graciously approved European peacekeepers in Ukraine, though only after a ceasefire. Macron, ever the cautious diplomat, reassured everyone that these peacekeepers wouldn't be on the front lines, just present enough to make it seem like Europe is still relevant. Meanwhile, Trump continued pushing Ukraine to sweeten the pot for America. A mineral deal is on the table, giving the US access to Ukraine's rare earth deposits, a move that Macron enthusiastically supports, as long as American involvement is very strong. But just as Kyiv hesitated, Putin dangled his own offer lucrative mining rights for the US in Russian occupied Ukraine and Siberia. The message is clear Trump sees Ukraine as an asset, not as an ally. Security guarantees? Well, unnecessary. A stable peace? Well, that is also optional. A deal that keeps America and Trump winning? Now that's essential. And as this game unfolds, one thing is certain Trump and Putin are playing chess, while Europe and Ukraine are scrambling to stay on the chessboard. Hear what Trump had to say while he met Macron at the White House.
I mean, that's what I do. I do deals. My whole life is deals. That's all I know is deals. And I know when somebody wants to make it and when somebody doesn't. I will say this, before I came here, there was no communication with Russia whatsoever, and Russia wasn't answering calls. They were not talking to anybody. They wouldn't talk to anybody, and people sort of accepted that as being that they want to go forward and just keep going without stop. But when I got here, one of the first calls I made was to President Putin, and we were treated with great respect, and they want to end this war. So that's a big thing, because I didn't know if I could say that, but it's a big thing. They want to do it, and the group in the front row that I introduced, they're all very active in it, and we're working on deals right now, transactions right now, and in particular, the big one is to get the war stopped, whether it's ceasefire or direct to an agreement. I'd like to go directly to an agreement, but ceasefire will always happen a little bit quicker, and every day you're saving thousands, or at least hundreds, but thousands in some cases lives, so we want to see if we can get that.
And now it's that time on the show when we decode this the Trump card threadbare. And joining us today is Vlada Galan, all the way from Washington, D.C. Vlada is an international geopolitical expert. Vlada, thank you so much for speaking to Oneindia.
Thank you so much for having me. It's always great to be here.
Perfect. Vlada, are you also noticing what I am noticing? Trump and Putin's, well, some are calling it a bromance, is now becoming the talk of the town. And it took years in making as well. How does this growing camaraderie reshape the global international dynamics, especially in the context of the ongoing Russia-Ukraine war?
Well, what many are seeing and what many are saying is that the United States has had a complete reversal on its foreign policy when it comes to Ukraine and when it comes to Europe. Many people are questioning the transatlantic relationship and partnership and having a lot of questions to what's really going on. But overall, what you really see is two presidents who really believe that they are tough deal makers. You have the East versus West, if you will. Donald Trump is the art of the deal. He is the tough New York businessman. He is the Western hard cut New Yorker that had to fight with the labor unions. He knows how to make a deal. And then you have President Putin. He is a former KGB agent. He is the old school, very Soviet mentality who also knows how to play the game and drive a very hard deal and drive people into the palm of his hand. And so you you're seeing play out is a very interesting dynamic. President Trump had a win with Putin, and Putin knew exactly what he was doing when he handed back one
Mm-hmm.
of the Americans that was being held in Russia. That gave Trump a huge win. And that's the kind of victory lap that you see that Trump likes to take. Putin knew exactly what he was doing. That was very, very strategic. And in
Mm-hmm.
return, you see this kind of Nash equilibrium theory playing out where Trump is making Putin feel like he can save face and there's a way out of this by placating to him. Will it work? We're going to find out.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Well, Vlada, staying at it, Putin never had much love for Europe as well. Now, Donald Trump, despite, I mean, the news just coming in that UK has pressed sanctions over Russia, Donald Trump is still trying to negotiate. He's still trying to find a middle way out. Do you think that it's a win-win situation for both Trump and Putin as of now to have an alienated Europe in this scenario?
Well, I think that the alienated Europe serves a purpose to Trump currently. And the current
Hmm.
purpose is to put Zelensky where he wants him. He wants Europe and Zelensky to feel that they are not going to have the support of the US. He wants to put pressure to bring forward the deal. And as you
Hmm.
see, before Trump even had a chance to get off the phone with Putin, I firmly believe that Lavrov was already making travel arrangements to go to Riyadh, knowing
Hmm.
there was no doubt that they were going to accept that meeting and that they were going to accept the beginning of those talks. It's because Trump is placating a bit to Putin and giving him a way to save face. And unfortunately, that has to come with a very tough rhetoric that currently feels like he's isolating Europe. Do I think that
Hmm.
going to break, years and years and years and decades of, foreign policy to abandon Europe? No, I don't
Hmm.
believe that Trump is going to do that. I don't believe this White House is going to do that. I do
Okay.
believe that they want to put pressure on Europe to feel that they cannot sustain this any longer. And that's the reality. Nobody wants to admit this. That
Hmm.
really the reality. Europe cannot afford for this war to continue. And he's hoping by kind of making one side feel disadvantaged that he will bring them to the table to make a deal, which no one has been able to do before. Zelensky does not want to come to the table under certain preconditions. And of course, you can understand why. Nobody wants to come in and give 20 to 30% of their land at the get-go. That's understandable. But
Hmm.
end of the day, there does have to be, a willingness to come forward. And the current peace proposals that we've seen out of Ukraine have been very tough proposals to even get Russia to the table.
All right, all right. Well, yeah, what you say, Vlada, reminds me of Donald Trump's very strong words to NATO back in 2017-18 when he was in first term. And he said that America shouldn't be the only nation pumping in money. So the European nations should also come and at least put in some money in NATO, and then the longevity of the ties would stay. Nonetheless, Ukraine, Zelensky, these are one of the key characters, I would say, in this whole matrix of the developments that are happening. Do you think that an alienated Europe and a weakened Zelensky are now have been moved to the margins here? And does that also help Putin in a way to win this war, maybe quote unquote win this war, when Donald Trump is actually sidelining Zelensky for Putin?
This all depends on Zelensky and how he plays ball with Trump. Trump is
Okay.
playing hardball. And unfortunately, Zelensky is not doing himself any favors. And I hate to say it, as you know, I have a Ukrainian background. The
Hmm.
reality is that Zelensky knew the protocol that was being structured for the beginning of these talks. He knew that
Hmm.
Trump was going to send a delegation to sit with the Russians. He knew that Trump was going to follow with a delegation to sit with the Ukrainians before trying to do anything further. As
Hmm.
the delegation was meeting in Riyadh, you saw Zelensky on every European station fervently discussing that he was not invited to the talks. He understood the protocol from the beginning. What he's actually doing, instead of playing into Trump's rhetoric game, what he's doing
Hmm.
is trying to go and embarrass Trump and embarrass the United States. Marco Rubio
Right.
just recently came out and gave an interview where he stated that when they tried to come together to put together a minerals deal regarding Ukrainian minerals, where they would work it in a joint kind of partnership with the Ukrainian government, which would give the US strategic interest inside of Ukraine, he said before Zelensky rejected the deal to them directly, he said, I have to take it to legislature. Before he took it to the parliament in Ukraine, he already was going on every TV station and saying, this is ridiculous. We reject this. We're not doing it. If you continue to play that game, then unfortunately, Europe and Zelensky are going to stay marginalized. They're going to stay on the sidelines. They've got to learn to play ball. Trump has a game here that he is playing.
So, Vlada, a quick question here. Do you see Zelensky as a suitable business partner for United States and not a strategic ally?
At the end of the day, Zelensky going, and kind of first advertising that he rejected the minerals deals before he even had a discussion and gave any feedback back to the United States shows that, he's not really playing into Trump's game, which is not going to make him a formidable business partner in the long run. However, Trump is smart enough to find the pathway to bring both to a deal. The question is actually going to be Europe. Is Europe going to hate Trump so much and try to give Zelensky so much cushion as a backup that it's going to ruin Trump's deal? What Trump really wants is for Europe to also kind of start pushing Zelensky towards a deal, which Europe has not done just yet. It doesn't mean it cannot happen. Do I think that Trump wants to see Zelensky in the long run in Ukraine? No, he does not. He wants elections. He wants Ukraine to start a new chapter post the war. And at the end of the day, it is time for elections. And that's very difficult to hold elections during wartime. Every Ukrainian in the high numbers agrees that there should not be elections until after the war. It's also unconstitutional. There needs to be a peace deal and there needs to be an election. And Trump hopes to see Zelensky go. That's very evident. And by the way that this whole story is playing out and by the way that Zelensky has been, there is already talks of who could be the candidate to replace him, who could be running in the elections. You've seen articles from the UK to the US asking this question.
Right, absolutely. And then the European big question here. I mean, do you think it is using an iron fist in a velvet glove-like situation where we see President Macron trying to placate Donald Trump at the White House, and on the other hand, the UK is slamming sanctions on Putin, one of the biggest ones that history could recall?
What Europe is doing is giving some support to Ukraine, which I understand. It is on their continent. It is in their benefit. What Europe is not understanding is that right now it requires playing Trump's hardball a little bit. And you saw Macron at the White House. He does understand that a little bit. You saw him playing into Trump. Macron understands Trump a little bit differently than some of the other European countries, which just see Trump as a big bully, trying to bully everybody into a position. At the end of the day, Europe has had 3 years to try to bring them together and make a deal. And at the end of the day, they have not done that. And this is why you're seeing a very different approach, a very aggressive approach. And Europe is actually, I think, going to be kind of divided in this question.
Vlada, thank you so much for speaking with Oneindia. Always a pleasure to speak to you.
Thank you so much.
Vlada Galan, their international geopolitical expert, all the way from Washington, D.C. Thanks for watching this episode of The Trump Card. We will be back with a new episode tomorrow. Stay tuned.
Don't miss out. Log on to oneindia.com for more updates.